Hey, welcome to I Was Just Thinking. I'm Rudy Maxa. I'm a travel journalist and a broadcaster. If this is the first time you've joined me for this on YouTube and Facebook, I'm a former Washington Post reporter. That was the first 20 years of my career. I was an investigative reporter and scandal monger. And then I sort of got into travel writing, and I used to do a show on National Public Radio called Marketplace. And I was a savvy traveler, and that led to television. I have 98 episodes on PBS on the world's great destinations, and wrote for National Geographic Traveler for 17 years. Okay, so there's my brief resume. And I'm coming to you today from a peninsula in southwestern France called Cap Ferret. And it is about a 15-minute drive, if there's no traffic, from the city of Bordeaux in the region of Bordeaux. So I wanted to open the show. You know, sometimes I open with some wine and talk about the region a bit. I wanted to open this show with a bottle of Bordeaux. Now, there are three grape growing districts in the France that most Americans know, not necessarily in this order, but Champagne, Burgundy, plane going overhead, Champagne, Burgundy, and Bordeaux. I'm in the Bordeaux region, not the Bordeaux. There's a Bordeaux town, there's a Bordeaux region, and there's the Bordeaux wine. And I thought I'd try a bottle of Bordeaux because I'm in the Bordeaux region, which is where this village of Cap Ferret is. It's primarily a peninsula with the Atlantic Ocean on one side and something called the Bay of Arcachon on the other side. And it's traditionally been a home for oystermen and still is. There are oyster beds all up and down the bay. You can have oysters for 75 cents delivered to your house on ice, shucked, ready to go. If you like oysters, this is where you want to be. At any rate, if you like wine, Bordeaux is where you want to be as well. So I took a drive 2 days ago, to the village of Saint-Emilion, which is sort of the heart of wine district in the Bordeaux region. It's certainly the best known town. There are wine stores about every half block. It's like coffee shops in Seattle. And I visited a lovely winery outside of the village of Saint-Emilion, about a 5-minute drive or so. And it was more by chance than by design. In fact, it was entirely by chance. Last weekend, my granddaughter, Eliza, my about to be 11-year-old granddaughter, and I were at the local market here in Cap Ferret. We struck up a conversation with a very nice woman named Victoire. And she wanted to know what I was doing here. And I said, well, I'm a journalist. And she said, oh, well, I work for a winery in Bordeaux. I said, well, I'm actually going to a winery. I have some friends at a winery in Bordeaux. She knew the name. She said, why don't you come to my winery? I said, well, great. Why not? And so we went to this winery. And that's how I wound up opening up this bottle of wine from Chateau Angelou. Oh, can you see it? There it is. Now, I didn't know anything about Chateau Angelou when we went there 2 days ago. And I'm a little embarrassed by that because having talked to my sort of wine mentor, a friend of mine in Minneapolis who knows a lot about wine, Stu Williams, I said, do you know Angelou? This was after I'd gone there. I called him. I said, do you know this wine? He said, you don't know this wine? I said, no, I didn't know until I visited. He said, you got to visit there? I said, yeah. I said, we tasted this chateau. He says, do you know how much this cost? And I do now because Victoire told me. There's the label. It's a 2016 that I have of this. They make several reds, and this is their top flight one, the Chateau Angelou. It's a Premier Grand Cru. First of all, there's the chateau. It's a relatively new one, or it's been redone. This chateau is one of the earliest, and the winery is one of the earliest in Bordeaux. It started in 1782 and has been in the same family for 8 generations. Think about that. 8 generations that have been producing wine there on this land. And by comparison to other wineries in Bordeaux, it has quite a large footprint, about 129 acres of gorgeous, gently rolling hills of 2 kinds of grapes, Merlot and Cabernet Franc. Now, if you're a Bordeaux fan, you know that Cabernet Sauvignon is one of the important grapes, and winemakers here blend Cabernet Franc and Merlot and a couple others, and Cabernet Sauvignon and a couple others. This bottle is 60% Merlot and 40% Cabernet Franc. That's what it was in 2016, which is when this bottle is from. I got to tell you, this wine is for a special occasion because it's quite expensive. I found the 2016, this one that I have here, online today in the United States for about $600, but I also found it for $1,200 and $1,500. So it's a fairly expensive wine. And during our tasting, Victoire was kind enough to open this bottle. I tasted, I was blown away by it. And I said, look, I do this webcast and I want to do something on Bordeaux since I'm here. Can I take the rest of the wine? bottle of wine home. And she went, well, okay, which was very kind of her. So I did taste this 2 days ago. I know what it tastes like. I would normally, if I was at home, I have all the big wine glasses and stuff. But here at my daughter's, whoops, always good to take the stopper out. Here at my daughter's home in Cap Ferret, we have one size wine glass. So this is now 2 days old, but I kept it very cool. The first thing, I remember years ago, I took a wine tasting course in Bordeaux. It was about 2 hours long. And the first thing you're supposed to do, according to wine tasting, is admire the color. This is nearly black. That's the first thing I said when Victoire poured this. I said, "Oh my gosh, it's almost black. It's beautiful. It is purple squared." So you're supposed to look at the color, maybe swirl it. You can't. So I'm going to swirl it a little to get the oxygen in it going, but it's already going on this one because it was open 2 days ago. I'll nose it. I'll smell it, admire it. If it smells funky, you probably have a Burgundy. That's an okay thing for Burgundy. This smells, this smells of huge fruit. Not a California huge fruit. And by the way, it is aged in oak, but I don't get any oakiness in it. Anyway, allow me to have a taste. It's as good 2 days later as it was at the winery. This is a really impressive wine. If you can buy it, you'll see a couple other brands. I don't know if they're all in the United States, but this is the one you want. This is the Grand Cru Classic. This is the one you want. And again, not until I got home and I called my wine mentor friend in Minneapolis and I said, "Do you know this?" And he made me feel so ignorant for not knowing Chateau Angelus. Did I find out that I was a really lucky guy to have run into the Victoire. Now, this is a very robust, very big wine, all kinds of berries. I thought it was one kind of berry. She thought it was another, but you be the judge. Now, since this is a travel broadcast and not a wine class, I'm not going to go into all the different sectors of Bordeaux. It's a wide territory, and there are different wines depending on the terroir, what kind of dirt various vines are being grown in. They're grown in different sections. Suffice it to say, you've heard many of the big names: Chateau Margaux, Haut-Brieuc, all those big names, also very expensive Bordeaux's. But suffice it to say that every second, 18 bottles of Bordeaux are sold around the world. Every second. And unlike American wineries, you don't just drive up to a Bordeaux winery and buy a keychain with the logo and a chef's apron and a sweatshirt, or do a tasting. Most wineries in Bordeaux, as in France, Burgundy as well, to some extent in Champagne, you should book ahead, if possible. You write a letter to the winery or send an email, look for them online, and tell them you're a fan of the wine and you're coming to Bordeaux in a few weeks or a couple of months, and maybe you'd like to arrange a tasting or at least visit the winery. They will let you know yay or nay. Some will say no, some will say yes. If you have trouble getting through the door, you might want to go to your retailer who sold you the wine and have them maybe call the distributor and say, "Look, if you're a good client of that wine store, the distributor will say, "Look, I got this guy who really loves your wine, or this woman who really loves your wine, and he spends a lot of money on it. He's coming to Bordeaux. Can you find time to give him or her a tasting?" And that will may get you in the door at well. Or you can just hang out in the right market in Cap Ferret and hope you run into Victoire, as I did, and maybe she'll invite you to the winery. Okay, that's wine. I will keep the wine here. You'll see it is about 7 minutes after 9 in the evening here in Bordeaux. It's a little after 3 in New York, a little after noon in LA. If you're watching this on YouTube, because it's going to stay up forever, I mean, way beyond my life, I'm sure, and on Facebook, we're broadcasting this recording this on the 22nd of July, 2021. So we're still in a post-COVID travel era, and rules are still changing as where Americans can go, where Americans can't, where Europeans can go, what countries you can go into without having a test, with just proof of vaccination. It's a very mixed up travel time, I can tell you that. And if you're thinking of coming to any country in Europe this summer, you've got to stay on it on almost a daily basis. Keep checking the internet, find out what the country rules are for visiting. As of today, you can come to France as an American if you have proof of vaccination, complete vaccination. You're 2 weeks after your second shot if you took one of the regimens that require 2 shots. And of course, when you return to the United States, within 72 hours of your departure, you have to show a negative COVID test. So you have to have that done in whatever country you're in generally. Here in France, you have to find a place to do that. It may be free. You may pay for it. So, how did I get off on that? Well, just telling you that I'm here in France, and it's not easy to be here in France. And I know the numbers are going up now in positive tests in the United States. They're spiking again. Whether we will have the privilege of visiting countries around the world as we do some of them right now, not many in Asia, but some in Europe now, how long that'll continue, I don't know. But my guest for this hour has been all over the world because he flies for free in business class, because he has, well, let me show you the title of his book. I call him the $40 million man. He has written a new book called Mileage Maniacs. He is a mileage maniac. You can see the subtitle there: My Genius, Madness, and a Touch of Evil to Amass 40 Million Frequent Flyer Miles. 40 million frequent flyer miles is crazy. Crazy. Nuts. And we're going to find out how he did it. And we'll also talk to him about how mileage programs have changed. Say hello to Steve Belkin. Hi, Steve. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Rudy.
And we reach you where in Mexico?
Sunny Cozumel off the coast of Cancun.
Okay, I'm in France. Our engineer Tommy's in outside of Sacramento in California, and you're in Cozumel. We have an international show. I'm sorry I can't give you some of this wine to taste because it's pretty incredible.
I'm sorry I can't give you any, and I'm sorry I can't give you any margaritas to drink.
I'm sorry as well. All right. First of all, let me start with asking you what a mileage maniac is. You describe yourself that way. How would you tell somebody at a cocktail party who said, what have you done the last 20 years? And you go, well, I'm sort of a mileage maniac. And they go, what's that?
Well, fair question. I think there's two polar opposites to the mania of mileage. On the positive side, it's I'm fascinated by it. I'm intrigued by it. And maybe on the more dark side, I'm obsessed by it. I can't get enough of it. It's a little bit out of control. So I would say it's the Jekyll and Hyde of the definition of mania.
You started, the mileage bug sort of bit you in 1988, and that was... Oh, there's Steve. I don't know why we went black there. Anyway,
I'm here.
I was just saying that you got bit by the mileage bug in 1988, which is about a little year and a half after American Airlines and United started frequent flyer programs. And I would say, and I think you'd probably agree, because you didn't pay much attention to it for the first year, that people thought it might be sort of a gimmick like CB radios, a one-time promotion where you fly and you get some miles, and I don't know, you got to sign up for it, and maybe you get a free ticket someday, but it wasn't a big thing quite yet. And these were in the days, and it's important to note this, when you could fly and your ticket, the name on the ticket didn't have to match your ID. In fact, I don't remember if they checked your ID.
No, they didn't.
Okay. So you were bitten by the bug when you saw an ad that United Airlines was saying, hey, we'll give you triple miles for every mile you fly. And you sort of saw that, and you thought about it. And then you met some guy who said he was one of these beginning mileage maniac. You thought, I got to look into this a little more. What did you do with that triple mileage offer on United that earned you 1 million miles?
Over a weekend.
Over a weekend. How many people did that involve? What did you do?
I basically connected a bunch of dots that United Airlines didn't think was possible. They were offering triple miles, but what they didn't realize, or maybe they realized and didn't care, is that for every segment that you flew, that you would get triple miles, not for the whole, not the trip itself. So I figured out a way to turn a nonstop round trip into a 6-stop round trip. So the number of bonus miles that were accumulated were multiplied by 6. And then I multiplied 6 times 23, and I found 23 Steve Belkin clones who needed to get from LA to the East Coast for Thanksgiving to fly under my name. And
you had friends. None of them could afford to fly. Well, you were relatively unemployed.
Not relatively.
You had been unemployed, and you had some friends who were unemployed, and they all wanted to get home from the West Coast to the East. And you said, I'll pay for your tickets. Just fly under my name. Is that it in a nutshell?
Bingo.
And and each of them put your frequent flyer account on their ticket or on their reservation, so that you accumulated all the miles these 23 people received, plus the triple mile promotion,
Correct.
coast to coast, and you wound up with enough miles to fly free and international. How many international free first class tickets can you get for a little over 1 million miles in those days?
At the time in 88, 80,000 miles, probably about 13 business class tickets anywhere in the world.
Now let's keep in mind a business class ticket back then, as sometimes it still does, can cost $5,000-$6,000 in
'88, it was probably closer to 8 and 9 because there were a lot fewer airlines flying internationally, and there was much less competition than there is today. So I'd say closer to 8 or 9.
And do you remember how much money it cost you to fly these 23 people round trip? Was it about $500 a ticket?
Yeah, about $500 a ticket. So the value of that money that I spent, I ended up with business class tickets that would cost a few $1,000 for about $400 or $500. So I saved about 90% using miles to pay for miles instead of paying cash for the ticket. So it's a hell of a foreign exchange currency versus a dollar. A mile was worth a lot more.
Look, I'm a mileage guy, but I can't tell you how many years it's taken me to accumulate 1 million miles, and you accumulated 1 million in a weekend. That's extraordinary. Now you never looked back after that, did you?
No, as you said, not only was I was bit by the bug, and then I was infested by bugs for the next 20 years.
Yeah, your total cost, as I recall, was like $5,700 for all their tickets. I think, as I recall from your book, I wrote this down.
That sounds about right.
And you received maybe $48,000 or more worth of business class tickets for that.
Easily.
Right. You got, exactly. That is quite extraordinary. Your next one was, let's see, well, I know you did some stuff regarding when you got into the music promotion business. You needed to travel a lot. But your next, I want to jump to, I love the bot run. I want to jump right.
Who doesn't?
There, we're back again. I don't know what's happening. I don't know. Sunspot.
We're going to blame it on the French because I have a fiber optic line here in Cozumel.
Well, I am on a cellular service. I'm on my granddaughter's cellular service because it's stronger than the broadband that comes into the house here. Fiber optic is slowly getting to this house, but it's house by house and it's not here yet. And by the way, the sun is going down. If you see things getting a little darker, I want to try to get right to the bot run. Now, the bot is the currency of Thailand. They deal, a bot, 30 bots worth of bucks, I think, these days. So I'll set it up and you can take it from there. You saw a promotion involving Thai Airways that involved getting bonus miles, just flying from here to just very little short runs right within Thailand. And you realized that they were part of the Star Alliance. And first you thought, well, I could get a lot of United miles because they're part of the Star Alliance. But then you realized that Air Canada is part of the Star Alliance. And unlike United, if you got a business, in front of the plane seat, there were no blackout dates. You could fly anytime you want. So you wanted to get a lot of Thai Airways miles that you could convert into Air Canada miles. So you flew to Thailand, never having been there in your life, right?
Correct.
And how many people just as you got 23 of your buddies from California to fly, how many people did you need to fly in a short time between these cities, these little short runs in Thailand to accomplish your goal?
So there was an airfare of $8 between 3 small little towns in northern Thailand, Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, and
unbelievable. Okay.
And
you needed how many people to fly?
So it's not that I needed. I really wanted to justify the expense of going to Thailand and then really scaling this. I wanted 20 people in northern Thailand. So I wanted 20 people. And I couldn't find 23 unemployed improv actors like I did in Los Angeles in '88. But I did find 10 out-of-season rice harvesters. And I also found 10 disabled Thai masseuses to make up my team of 20. And their job was to fly 200 one-way trips back and forth between these 3 small towns to earn what Air Canada calls super elite status, which, as you mentioned, you can fly in business class on Air Canada with no blackouts or capacity controls. No other airline in the world offered that for their top tier members. So it was a huge, huge opportunity that was really kept quiet in the frequent flyer community.
And I blacked out for a minute there, Steve, and I had to reload. So you're looking for 20 people, did you say you needed?
I needed 20 people. 10 of them were.
Your dad had a friend in Chiang Mai there, and other than that, you knew no one in Thailand.
Nobody. Yeah, exactly.
So you go out on the street looking for 20 people, and where did you stop by?
So I was very frustrated because all the expats in northern Thailand only knew other expats, and none of them were willing to fly the 200 segments that I needed them to fly back and forth for 6 weeks.
Can't believe it.
So I sought refuge at a massage parlor to get a traditional massage, very important. And it turned out as I was looking around getting my massage that there were a lot of prosthetics and canes and wheelchairs, and I realized I was in a massage parlor that was staffed by Thai disabled people. So that was my first light bulb that went off, because a lot of these people are kind of on the fringes of Thai society for being handicapped. And then the owner of the Thai massage parlor knew a chief of a local village who had a bunch of out of harvest time rice farmers that rounded out the team. So I had 20 people that I had that would be my what I would call mileage mules for this mileage opportunity.
So you needed 200 flights.
200 flights per person over maybe 6 to 7 weeks. So it would be 8 flights a day per person.
Eight flights a day per person.
Bingo.
I know there's short flights, like 45 minutes, but still.
No, like 20, like 20 minutes, like 20 minutes each way. It was terrific. And none of these people had ever been on an airplane, let alone out of their out of Chiang Mai or their small village. So it was a real adventure for them.
I love it. So it's just extraordinary to me. Okay, so
me too.
Okay, I blacked out again. So I had just been saying, so you got all these people to fly. You got 200 people to fly 8 a day.
20 people
to fly 200.
To fly 200 flights, right? Bingo. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so while this was going on, the DEA took a little interest in this, didn't they? The Drug Enforcement Administration of the United States.
Correct.
And they reached out to you, and you had to fly back to talk to a guy.
Correct. I had gone back to Cleveland. The infrastructure and the machinery to earn all these miles was in gear for 3 weeks. These people were flying back and forth, no problem. And then I got a cryptic call from the DEA. They didn't know that I was in Cleveland. They saw that whatever it is I was doing seemed to be next door to their offices in Chiang Mai. And they asked if I could meet them in a couple of days, and I was not prepared to delay them. So I said, sure, I'll meet you in a couple of days, which meant that I had to be on a flight in about 4 hours to get to Thailand over the next 25 hours. And the DEA.
What did they say to you when you met with the DEA guy? What did he think you were doing?
Well, he kind of gave me a little bit of a quiz at first. He's like, "Are you familiar with the term Golden Triangle?" Which I was not. And he explained to me that the Golden Triangle meant that this area of Thailand was the opium distribution capital or smuggling capital of the world. So that was kind of news to me, and shame on me for not knowing that. I was a little bit focused on these 20 people and earning 30 or 40 free business class tickets. So I explained to him my Golden Triangle, which was northern Thailand, Montreal, which is where Air Canada is located, and Cleveland, where I came up with this, this mileage monster idea. So once he understood that either I was the smartest drug smuggler in the world or the stupidest, he gave me the benefit of the doubt, and I showed him all my spreadsheets, and he gave me a green light, and maybe wanted a little bit of a piece of the action as well.
Well, a free ticket, maybe, or something, maybe. And didn't a Thai police guy government guy get interested as well?
Yeah, actually, it was the general manager of Thai Airways in Chiang
Ah,
Mai,
right, right.
and he had while the DEA had a legal concern, the Thai Airways had a cultural concern. Apparently, in Buddhism, and please don't quote me on this, but the executive summary is that if you believe in Buddhism and something bad happens to you in a previous life, that you're reincarnated with something kind of was like some bad karma. So a lot of handicapped people in Thailand are kind of looked askance at because it's like it's their karmic revenge for something else that they did. So it's very difficult for these people to be mainstreamed into society. So
And you've
especially
got 10 of them flying eight round trip
uh,
flights a day in planes.
on the exact same flight,
Right.
never getting off the plane. It was the same plane that flew the all 8 routes. So the some of the flight crews over a couple of weeks, they started realizing this is not a one-time deal. These people keep coming back, and they became more and more afraid that there was something really bad going to happen to the flight if these people kept flying. So basically, the Thai Airways manager said to me, Steve, I know that you haven't finished flying, but here's your money back. You have 100 flights, that's enough. And he didn't realize that 100 flights ain't going to cut it for me. I needed 200 per person. So we ended up doing a very protracted negotiation to figure out a way to protect the flight crew's karma and keep my miles rolling in.
And how did you protect the flight? I mean, did he go talk to them and say, "Look, here's what this guy's doing. It has nothing to do with bad karma"? Or
No, I kind of helped him come up with his own solution that he could take credit for. I'm like, you're giving me a check for $12,000 as a refund. I said, that's a lot of money for a bunch of $8 flights. I said, let's figure out a way that you can be the hero to keep these $12,000 in your pocket. And I explained to him that as much as I wanted 10 people to fly at the same time so I could earn these miles quickly, the truth was I wasn't in any rush, and that we only started putting 2 people on a flight per day. And instead of the whole process taking 6 weeks to earn all these miles, it took closer to 5 months. So he was happy. He kept his money, and the Thai people, frankly, I think were kind of happy.
So the company kept its $12,000, didn't have to hand you a check.
Right, and we just flew more slowly and more with less density of people. So we flew 2 people a day instead of 10 people a day. I think that they were pretty happy because I think that the 8 flights a day was kind of getting under their skin at some point. So it was a win all around.
I'm terribly sorry. I blacked out again. Okay, so we had a happy ending, and you received. I don't remember how many international.
Each flyer earned the equivalent of 5 business class tickets on anywhere in the world times 20. So more or less 100 business class tickets anywhere in the world. Let's round up. Let's round up.
This is how Steve started becoming the 40 million mile man.
40 million. 40 million.
I'm sorry?
40 million.
Yeah, 40 million. Did I say one? I meant 40. No, $40 million man. Or 40 million mile man. I think we should pay a little tribute to the pudding guy, who's not you. But tell us about the pudding guy. He was sort of starting around when you were starting, I gather.
Yeah.
What did he do? He's an American.
Correct. I'm not exactly sure where he's from, but he was the precursor. Okay. He started the history. I just scaled it. He found a promotion whereby if you could buy a certain product from a certain food company, you could get 100 American miles. And most of the products were like $3 and $4. They weren't such a good value. He figured out,
Steve, I just want American Airlines miles.
American Airlines miles, correct.
Yeah.
So for 99% of the products that he found, the price point wasn't a good value, but he figured out a way to buy individual pudding cups instead of all the other bulk items that they had. I think it was for about $0.25. And his light bulb went off, and I believe that he purchased the equivalent of about 1.3 million miles worth of American miles. And he cleaned out basically every grocery store, within a 10 or 15 mile radius of his town. So I had I mean, that was like a real aha moment for me. But I think that the question that went through my mind was, pudding guy, why the hell did you stop at 1 million? Why didn't you get 10 other people to go to grocery stores, or why not go to 10 other cities and clean out those grocery stores, or why not, get investors so that you can spend more money to get all these miles? He was happy with 1.3, and I think that my challenge was that my when is enough button wasn't working at that number. So I'd say that he was a role model, but he was not somebody that I wanted to replicate. I wanted to lap him.
And you certainly did. The Belkin method. My guest is Steve Belkin. I'm Rudy Maxa, and my guest is Steve Belkin. He has written a book called Mileage Maniac. I'll show you the cover here. I know we have one to put on the screen, but I'll show it to you. Mileage Maniac. It's a true story of his 20 years or so of garnering frequent flyer miles by finding legal loopholes in particularly promotions that airlines provide. And it's just a fascinating book. I mean, if you have any interest in frequent flyer miles, you're going to feel so inadequate after reading the book. And you happen to mention about the pudding guy. Why didn't he get some investors? You did get investors from time to time to put in big bucks. Can you tell us about one of those?
Sure. In 1999, United had a very obscure promotion in their in-flight magazine where you could earn 25,000 miles, but you had to fly on a first class ticket, not even business class. It had to be a pure first class ticket. And most of first class was international flights. They'd be $5,000, $10,000. It wasn't a good value. I stumbled upon one route, LA to Vegas, that turned out that they had first class, not business class, and the airfare was not cheap, but it was a good value if you wanted to earn 25,000 miles, Rudy. Keep in mind, in 1999, there was no such thing as credit card bonuses and manufactured spend. In general, you had to fly to earn. Okay, so I looked at this promotion and did the math, and I realized that if for every 3 flights from LA to Vegas, I could earn a business class ticket. So I think the value of a business class ticket at that time was about $6 or $7 grand, and I could do it for $1,200 worth of flights. So I wanted to hire about 15 or 20 people, but 80 of them signed up. So I was thinking, what do I do? Do I just tell the other 60 to screw off, or do I figure out a way to get 80 people to fly? And that's when I raised about $750,000 from a few outside investors to split the pot.
All right, Steve, I went dark again. The last thing you said was you realized that you could for every 3 round trips, I get.
For every 3 trips, it would be about $1,200 for a business class ticket anywhere in the world versus $6 or $7 grand, which was the normal cost. So it was a good 75% savings. And I went to my father, who was a rock concert promoter, and my father-in-law, who is a doctor, and a couple of other promoter and doctor friends, and convinced them that if we could raise $750,000, that there'd be enough miles to go around the whole investment pool, and we would all be, mileage millionaires for life. And I successfully raised the money.
Did you need more people to fly for that?
No, actually, the money matched the number of people that I recruited. I was hoping that 20 people would want to do this, but I sent out a list to about 200 people, and 80 of them were actually interested. I was surprised because I wanted people to fly 20 times to Vegas. Even though it was first class, it was 20 times in a month. So I figured maybe it would kind of, dilute the talent pool. But 80 people wanted to do it, so I needed to figure out a way to finance 80 mileage mules. And I did.
And did that one worked out, right?
Oh, that worked out wonderful until.
Yeah.
I had 10 million miles worth of these 80. I was going to earn 40 million miles. And at the 10 million mile mark, I got a cryptic phone call from United, not unlike the DEA. And the lawyer on the other end was like, "We know what you're doing and we want you to stop." Now, keep in mind, I wasn't doing anything illegal. Unlike the first thing I did in '88, everybody was flying under their own names and the miles were going into their own accounts. I simply was going to virtually manage all of their miles and control them. and there's
And you weren't
nothing.
violating any airline
No,
regulations either.
nothing. Nope. And which I asked them, I asked the lawyer, so what's the problem? And he said, Steve, we just don't like what you're doing. So, it's not everybody has the same opinion, but there didn't seem to be any legal or policy precedent for them to have me stop. But they were pretty insistent that if I didn't stop on my own, that they would stop me, and that if I stopped on my own at 10 million, we could work something out. But if I was going to, go balls to the wall for 40 million, I ran the risk of all those miles being confiscated. So since I had investors, I decided to take the prudent route and cooperate. If it would have just been me and my money and my miles, I would have gone to the mat with them and dared them to confiscate the miles and go to the media and fight them.
I was just going to say we should remember that in every frequent flyer program of every airline, it says at the airline's discretion, we can take away all those miles.
Kangaroo court.
Kangaroo court. But as Steve said, if you go to United, most airlines don't want you to go to the media and say, hey, I did it legit. I didn't break any laws, any airline regulations, and these guys want to confiscate all my miles. It's not good PR for an airline. You mentioned something called manufactured spend, and I'll give an example. You didn't do this, but some folks may remember when the U.S. Mint came out with new, the U.S. Mint's always trying to get us to stop using $1 bills and use silver dollars because they have a longer shelf life. The coin doesn't denigrate as paper money does. And for a while, right in the beginning, to try to get people to acquire these silver dollars, you could send into the Mint and say you send in $1,000, and they would send you at their cost. That's heavy. A lot of silver. They would send you a box with 1,000 silver dollars in it. Now, if you used your credit card that was attached to an airline or anything that earned miles or points, you would get 1,000, maybe more, maybe double that. And every day you could take your $1,000 and put it in the bank, pay your credit card, and do another 1,000 each day. And that went on for, how do you think it was about 2 months before the Mint went, wait a minute. How long do you think that lasted, Steve? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but it was not months. It was definitely more than a year, possibly more than 2 years. People were doing this.
Really?
People were doing. I think the people who started doing it were relatively quiet about it, and then you had bulletin boards like Flyer Talk that were kind of the early precursors to social media. When those guys started finding out, they started going viral. But I think that for a while there was a small clutch of people who were doing this very quietly and very effectively, which lengthened the life of the promotion. I remember there was an article in like the USA Today or Wall Street Journal. It's like, once it hits that, you're dead. You're dead in the water. That might have been the 2-month window that it was about to disappear. But it definitely had legs.
And in the frequent flyer world, that is called MS, which stands for manufactured spend. In other words, you're making up this spend. You're not really spending any money because you're getting it back some other way, whether you're buying a gift card, that's a whole nother topic. Or in this case, it's more easy to understand. You're buying these silver dollars, you're putting them in the bank. You don't have to pay any postage. You don't have to pay any banking fees. Although I know a lot of people who did that, the bank presidents called them in and said, what are you doing with all these silver dollars every day? What scam are you running? You did a manufactured spend with a couple of products, didn't you?
Yeah, a few products, absolutely. By the way, keep in mind, Rudy, with the U.S. Mint. Whoops, sorry about that. It's a little windy here. Okay, with the U.S. Mint thing, the background on that was people were using their credit card to buy money orders or to buy AAA traveler's checks.
Right.
Okay? And those were eligible for miles. And the credit card companies wised up and said, no, those aren't purchases, those are cash advances. So if you try to use those, not only are we not going to give you miles, but we're going to charge you whatever the monthly cash advance fee was. So really the U.S. Mint deal was kind of like a scramble to, what do we do now? The credit cards just shut us down. So like many of my peers, we're all in the catch me if you can business. It's like, you shut something down, we'll find, whack-a-mole, we'll find something else to keep going. So even today, 20 years later, there's still manufactured spend opportunities. They're not as lucrative and they're not as easy to execute, but there's always somebody out there that's 1 mile ahead of the airlines.
Um, let me just see. I have a lot of people saying your signal dropped. I'm very aware of that. But I did want to answer one question. I started the show by talking about what you needed to come into France. And Charles Herrick asked, is the vaccination card given at the time of the second shot accepted as proof of vaccination? In the United States, yes, but you may have to wait 2 weeks after you've had that second vaccination. So I wouldn't go the next day. I just wanted to I wanted to ask Charles a question. Let's see if we have any questions for you. A lot of people talking about the Golden Triangle and yeah. Nobody's suggesting new ways to get miles. What? Hang on. Let me this bottle of wine is sitting here, and my family is eating on the other side of the deck. Sarah, would you like some wine? Please take it.
Salute.
Yeah, save some for me, by the way. I just have a little glass here. Okay, sorry. Today, now your name has to match your ticket. You can't have people flying under your name to get miles for you. Airlines, I presume their lawyers have gotten a little smarter about filling in a few loopholes. Are you still in the game?
I'm in the game on the redeeming side because I have a relatively big balance of miles. Over these last 20 years.
I asked you when we talked, I said, how many miles do you have? And you played coy and said, well, several millions. Why do you play coy about it? You got a cover saying 40 million miles. And I'm asking, how many miles do you still have? Why are you coy about it?
Well, in writing, I can be, I can brag. But, when you get to know me, you'll find that I'm much more humble. So.
Well, you have 5 or 6 million miles at least?
5, 6, 3, 8. Yeah, you're in the
3, 8. Okay, you got a lot of miles. Okay, so let me go back to my original question. I mean, I'm sure if you see an opportunity to take a trip and it has bonus miles, you'll route yourself or do something smart. But are you doing any of the big plays you did that we've described so far?
Yeah, from the earnings standpoint, no, I'm not in the big play market anymore. For one simple reason, the airline programs used to be called frequent flyer programs, and then they slowly morphed into what they call loyalty programs. And the simple difference is frequent flyer programs rewarded you for the volume of flying you did or the volume of miles that you earned, and a loyalty program rewards you for the amount of money that you spend with the airline or partners or on a credit card, et cetera. Okay. So the game changed from, hey, Steve Belkin is really smart to Steve Belkin better have a lot of money to be able to spend with the airline to generate that kind of money, that kind of miles. Lost you.
I'm sorry, Steve, I dropped again. You were saying
the game
now, not frequent flyer programs, meaning.
Right. So the game morphed from frequent flyers, where it was how much you flew, to what they call loyalty programs, which is how much you spend with a given airline. It makes a lot of sense. Every other business operates on margin, not on volume. But for the first 20 years, for some reason, the airlines cared more about how much I flew than how much money I was bringing to the company. So that was kind of the pivot point. Where frequent flying became loyalty and spend was more important than flying. The reason that's important today, Rudy, and the reason I'm out of the game today is that what the airlines call a loyalty program, I call a treachery program, meaning that it used to be I knew how many miles I had to earn to get an international business class ticket. So the target was very clear. I might not have liked the amount, but at least I knew what it was. Today, the airlines have eliminated award charts, and the airlines are now doing what's called dynamic pricing. So I have no idea how many miles I need to earn to get what I want on the redemption side. So with that opaque process, it's bad enough that the airlines have kangaroo courts if they don't like what you're doing, but it's even worse when you're just being a normal person and you're like, hey, I want to go to Europe. How many thousands of dollars or how many trips do I have to take to earn that trip? You don't know, is it 70,000, 180,000, 330,000? It could be any of those numbers on any given day. So for me, that's treacherous.
I was going to ask you, it seems today that many people pad their I mean, I do too. I mean, I have way too many credit cards. I have no balance on. I don't keep a balance, but it's that sign up offer for credit cards. It can be as high as $100,000 in some hotel loyalty cards. It can be more than that. That seems to be the way the average person can get a big gulp of miles quickly.
So it's like a magician. It's like, watch the shiny object. So on the earnings side, the airlines are always going to come up with a way to get your attention. Hey, we'll extend the amount of time it takes to get elite status, or you can get 100,000 bonus miles. At the end of the day, the utility of those miles is what's important. So if you sign up for this credit card and you get 100,000 miles, and then you find out once you're ready to redeem that award, that 100,000 miles will barely get you, half of a one-way ticket in business class, it's a little bit of a letdown. Okay.
Sure.
So what the airlines have done is they'll tell you, you can fly for as low as a certain amount of miles, but at the end of the day, the fine print is we'll decide how many miles we're going to charge you on any given day for any given routing. So I feel like that opacity and lack of transparency is the death knell for the program. And I tell people, get out of the game, because the game has always been rigged, but there was room to play. I feel like now the game is rigged and the game is over. One man's opinion.
Am I wrong? I mean, people say, well, should I be getting frequent flyer miles? And I always tell them yes. I said, look, even sign up your child. Even if they only take one trip to see grandma across country a year, by the time they want to go visit colleges, they'll probably have one or two domestic tickets for free. So I don't think you're probably saying don't even bother collecting miles. You're saying don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it and bending over backwards and going out of your way to do it, as you did at one point. But I understand you're not saying don't collect frequent miles anymore because they're ridiculous. You're just saying don't have good expectations.
I would say that the sweet spot, the value proposition for frequent flyer miles is international business class tickets. That's right.
You were always trying to get it.
That's the reason to do it. So
exactly.
Look, the thing is, Rudy, even with domestic tickets, what I'm finding, domestic economy tickets, which is the airline sweet spot. That's how they want you to spend your miles. Right. Is that that even domestically, the airlines are doing a really good job with filling the planes with paid tickets, even kind of post COVID here, so that even if you want to use your tickets for domestic economy, the routings are crappy. If you want to go from New York to LA, there's almost never a low mile award that's a nonstop. It's always two stops. New York, Pittsburgh, Houston, LA. So at some point, you're looking at your dollars going, you know what? I'm going to suck it up and fly Spirit or Frontier for $200 or $300, and I'm going to fly exactly when I want, time of day, date of travel, etc. You're still hostage in domestic economy tickets to the whims of the airlines. So it's not as bad of a deal as it is for international first class or international business class. But I think it's not if you're somebody who needs to visit grandma on Tuesday and you want to be in the 9 a.m. flight, you're asking for trouble by playing the mileage game.
Counting on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, it's fascinating. It's dispiriting to know you're out of the business, and you can't tell us about some silver dollar scam or something. But not scam, but silver dollar
scheme
is the word. That's what I meant to say. Yes, exactly. But I really appreciate your taking the time to join us today and give us a little glimpse into the craziness that was, back in the halcyon days for. Blackout. See, when I go dark, do you go dark? You do.
Nope.
Okay.
I see.
Oh no, you don't. You know when I'm dark. I'm sorry. Well, I was just thanking you for spending time with us. Again, the book is called Mileage Maniac. The author is Steve Belkin, Belkin. I would heartily recommend you pick it up for a wildly entertaining read about a guy who wasted a good much of part of his youth collecting airline miles. Appreciate it, Steve. Thanks for coming to us from Mexico, and I thank you for listening to webcast. As I said at the beginning, we're broadcasting this or recording this live, broadcasting and recording it on the 22nd of July, 2021. We're coming out of sort of the worst of COVID, we hope. Travel is still a dicey prospect if you're going from country to country, but we hope it'll get better. But so I want you to keep that in mind when you realize what we're talking about. Meanwhile, we'll be back in 2 weeks, or I'll be back in 2 weeks. I don't think I'll be in Bordeaux, unfortunately, and I won't be drinking this bottle of great expensive wine, but I'm glad I could today, and I'm glad you could join us. If you want to sign up for my newsletter, I write it every 2 weeks. It's sort of a personal viewpoint on travel stuff and information on, certainly on COVID stuff and deals occasionally and frequent flyer miles. All you got to do is go to maxatours.com/newsletter, maxatours.com/newsletter, and just put in your first name, your last name, and bug just fell from a pine tree. Put in your first name, last name, and email. We'll send it to you for free every 2 weeks. And meanwhile, at Maxa Tours, you can look at our 2022 tours. We've got some new ones coming up. We hope we're going to be able to take them all. I think there might be one that might interest you. Until then, goodbye. See you in 2 weeks.